Hi, I'm Effie and this is What Effie Reads. This video is going to be my vlog for participating in Magical Readathon Gear Up, the week-long edition of this readathon created by Book Roast. I will link her channel in the description down below where you can find out all the details about this amazing readathon.
Pitch black hair, his eyes are green. Head's messed up, but heart so clean.
It's the 14th of March, which means it's officially the start of Magical Readathon Gear Up, unless I've got my dates wrong. Probably should double check, but I'm pretty sure it starts today and then runs for the next week. So my plan is kind of twofold. I'm going to have physical / ebooks, like books that I read with my eyes, and then I'm going to have backup of some audiobooks. I'll have to figure out the audiobooks a little bit later on, but I kind of have until work on Tuesday night to figure out my audiobooks. But as for the physical books, my plan, because I'm not making very quick progress on books at the moment, I'm going to go with books that I've already started but aren't that far through. So for a book that involves fate, because that's the deity, old god, I can't remember. I will come back later in the week with more of solid information about this readathon. But basically I need to read a book that involves fate as one part of it, and I need to read a book that's over 400 pages. So for fate, I've gone for The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is a book that I've massively hyped up in my head, so I'm a bit nervous about it. But also I'm this far through, so 50 pages. And so far I'm really, really loving it. Yes, it has a post-it note on, in case you can't read it. It says, "This edition was gifted to me by the writer Michael because I'm a soppy cat and have decided to put a post-it on it." I own 6 editions of this book, but I am annotating as I go through. So this is, I think, one of only 2 not signed editions I've got of it, but it's special to me. I ramble a lot, my apologies. So that is going to be my book that involves fate. And then for a book over 400 pages, I'm going to be reading Corrupt by Penelope Douglas, which is also my buddy read with Shannon over at Head in the Books. It's my buddy read for this month. And that's kind of my plan. I will check back in later, tell you all about my character and what these prompts actually relate to. But that's it for now. So I decided to pick up this book as my fate book, although I'm just going to read the first one because it's 3 books in one. The reason I picked this one up, I am listening it, I'm doing it as an audiobook, but reading it physically at the same time, is because there's literally a character in this book called Des Tiny, as in Destiny. And I'm well, that's obviously a book that involves fate. So brilliant, and it's super, super quick. I think the audiobook's only about 5 hours long, and I needed to do a reread anyway to get my first Darren Chan video out. So I'm so excited. I've got maybe an hour and a half, if that, left of this book, and I'm absolutely loving it. But the reason I popped on was because obviously I've previously annotated it, and I found a wee post-it note I'd left to myself where they go, "What kind of lunatic wants to be a vampire?" And I'd just gone, me, or at least the me that was battling untreated depression when I first read this book. And it just amused me so much, but also it's so painfully accurate. So I'm still really, really loving Addie LaRue. Although I'm a little bit nervous because I want it read in the next 9 days, that I'm going to be pushing myself to get through it and I won't love it as much as I possibly could. But I am really enjoying it. It's just a case of my focus isn't quite there at the moment and I keep I keep getting distracted. And whilst I logically know that if I just read for 2 hours every day, or read this for 2 hours every day, I'll get it done, in time. It's so much easier as a thought than it is as a reality. But loving it so much, loving how much thought there feels to be gone into this story, and hoping I can make some really good progress before I go to bed tonight. I'm not sure if I've updated or not. I finished my reread of Set to Freak, the first book in the Vampire Blood trilogy, which means I've technically read a Fate book. I suppose if I read the other 2 books, I could then say that I've read... Oh no, that wouldn't work. I was going to say I could say that I've read a book over 400 pages because this whole omnibus is over 400 pages, but it has to be 2 separate books. My current plan for a book over 400 pages is A Whisper of Death by Paul Barrett. It could be really good, it could be really bad, I don't really know. But it's on Scribd, it's a Scribd original, so at least I think it's a Scribd original. So I don't need to worry about the fact I've maxed out my script, and I think it involves necromancy. It also could work for a bone on the cover if I changed my mind and wanted to use a bone as my conduit. So basically it counts for 2 different conduits, but I'm fairly sure that I want to have a polearm, something like that, as my conduit, because it just felt very me for whatever reason. So I've been listening to A Whisper of Death by, I want to say it's Paul Barrett or something, and not enjoying it. But then last night I had issues with Scribd and it just wouldn't play. So I started Northern Lights, and this is my first time reading the series. And I'm actually really surprised. It did take me a while to get into the story, but now I'm actually kind of enjoying it. Although it's giving me kind of residential school vibes. I don't know if it was an inspiration, but it's giving me those kind of vibes. And because the physical book is 399 pages long, I may actually use it as a book over 400 pages because it's so close. I feel like it's close enough that it's okay to count it. That's my thoughts anyway. I'm still plodding away with Addie LaRue, still really enjoying it. And I've got a travel book because my Addie LaRue is staying at home because I'm annotating it. So I'm also reading Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I think if it weren't for the fact that I want to finish Addie LaRue in the next 7 days, ideally in the next few days, I would be continuing this because I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm finding it really, really gripping, and romance isn't usually my genre. I must have said this so many times on this channel, but yeah, it's not usually my genre, but this is done so well and it's giving me exactly the vibes I hoped it would.
I keep on running, burning,
just wanted to check in. I finished Whisper of Death and it was like a 2-star read. It was okay. I just found it like not enough time was spent building up the world. And there's a few things that rubbed me the wrong way, particularly an instance where they were like, oh, incest's fine because we're gay and we won't produce children anyway. It was a bit weird. And the way that women were treated was a little off for me. But the book I really want to talk about is like, it's not even going towards anything for Magical Readathon. I was just absolutely blown away by it. And it is Tender as the Flesh. This is a book that obviously I've heard loads about. It's a world where like animals have contracted this virus so you can no longer eat animal meat, and they started breeding humans purely for eating. And it was really, really dark. It had a very like lit thick tone to it, but it also had a lot of discussions about like morality and personhood, and it was incredibly dark as a read. The other thing is the ending absolutely floored me. It has got to be one of my, like, it's kind of like my favourite types of endings. The only thing I will say is if you don't like mistreatment of animals, give this book a miss, because not only is there discussion of culling, there's also like people abusing animals, and it's horrible, but also like it's really horrible how they treat the humans as well. There's a lot of like dehumanizing. There's some racial undertones because there's a discussion of how they particularly want humans, but they don't call them humans, with a certain skin colour so they can make accessories out of them. A very, very dark book, but very interesting and entertaining. Not sure when I last did a wee reading update, but I feel like I probably am due one. I'm maybe around 350 pages into Addie LaRue, so I've got about 8 hours worth of reading for that left. I'm still really, really loving it. Like, I'm loving the character of Henry, and obviously Addie is just so well thought out. And then I'm also like still chipping away with Corrupt. I'm kind of reading it just before I fall asleep. So it really just comes down to how tired I'm feeling each day. And also like I take a tablet which like has the effect of knocking me out before bed. So I don't tend to get much reading in. But I am enjoying it. I'm not finding it as twisted as I expected. I feel like I know nothing about the book, but I'd heard that it was like really dark and twisted, and I'm just not getting that at all. I don't think I'm going to finish either of these books before the like Sunday midnight, but I'm just being super chill with it. I mean, I've technically read 2 books that would count this week, because I listened to A Whisper of Death by Paul Barrett. Didn't love it, but it's a book, it counts. That was over 400 pages. And I also listened to Cirque du Freak by Darren Shan, and that has a theme of fate. I was going to say there's not much fate stuff in it, but there is a moment fairly early on in the book where the character kind of literally listens to fate. And I think that's kind of it. Like, I'm still reading Delilah Green Doesn't Care, absolutely adoring it. I'm tempted to just kind of finish that today and know that I don't need to think about it after that. But also, it would be nice to make some more progress on Addie LaRue. Essentially, the books I'm currently reading, I'm really enjoying, so I'm struggling to pick between them, which is not a bad position to be in, especially given how much I've been struggling with a reading slump lately.
I keep on thinking the monster I've become. Act without reason, react when it's all done.
Okay, so trying to dye the ends of my hair. I don't know if it's going to work because they're not crazy light, but they are lighter than my natural colour. So we'll see if this works out. Not sure. Hopefully I haven't covered myself in too much dye, and if I have, I've taken it off. Again, not sure. So we'll check back in a little bit to see if it's successfully dyed.
Just don't feel it. Motivation's all gone. And all of these pieces pick me up when you're done. Oh, I don't feel alright. Oh, yeah. Been trapped inside my mind. Oh, yeah. I feel it. I'm dealing. I know that you gave me much more than you wanted. I spend my borrowed time.
Well, I think we can fairly confidently say that the purple did not take in my hair, but my curls are looking very curly today after that. So essentially, I've just kind of gotten my hair wet today, and that's about it. So I still haven't finished Addie LaRue, but I went through and actually put tabs in it, which I'm really happy about. Apart from the fact that I used up like all of that kind of tab, and then I used up all of that kind of tab. So this is like a third kind of tab that I'm having to use. I've got maybe 100 pages left, and I'm pretty much at the point that Shannon told me she wanted my reactions for. So that's fun. I think my immediate plan is that I need to film my TBR. So I'm going to put a face on, and then whilst my hair's still continuing to dry, because I'm assuming it's still wet, otherwise it just looks greasy and horrible, which tends to happen when I don't use shampoo and conditioner but my hair gets wet. So basically I'm going to put my face on now, and then hopefully I can film my TBR soon. I don't know if that makes sense, but I am planning on finishing Addie LaRue today, so that's how I will finish up the video. Also, I think I will go through my character because I'm not sure I've done that at all this week. So over the course of this week, I managed to get through a reasonable number of books, which is really nice because it feels like it's been a while since I really got through any number of books. And I also had 2 5-stars this week. The 5 stars were Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. Since I only needed 2 books to complete this part of the readathon, I'm going to be using The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue as my book over 400 pages, and I'm going to be using Search a Freak from the Vampire Blood trilogy as my book that features Fate. I realised that I forgot to actually talk about the character that I've created for this readathon. Firstly, I haven't come up with a name yet, so if you've got any suggestions for a name for my character, I'm more than happy to hear them. Please comment them down below. So in order to create a character, there were character creation prompts that you had to complete, and you had from September up until this past readathon to carry them out. So for background, I chose my character to be a wildling, and for that I needed to read a book that was set outside or in a forest, and I went for Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coppersmith, as a large portion of the story is set in or around this rubber tree forest. I then decided that my character was from Dark Meadow, and for that I needed to read a dark academia, so I went for Vita Nostra. I can't remember the author's names off the top of my head, but there will be a picture on screen of the cover. And for my actual character, the heritage, I decided that my character was going to be a Skymorn who has been cursed to take on the form of an Iltherian. So for that, I needed to read an old book from my TBR for the Skymorn aspect, and I read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and for the Iltherian aspect I needed to read a book that had a crow on the cover or title or had a red cover, and for that I read Fangs by Sarah Anderson. And the final kind of character creation bits that I added to my character this week were that my conduit is a polearm, and my guild legacy is that my character is a member of the archivists and has made a pact with the god Lamia. So I feel like I got on really well with this readathon this week. It was a lot of fun. I read some absolutely exceptional books, and I'm looking forward to the next round of this readathon. I think it's coming very, very soon. Keep your eyes out for a TBR for that round coming soon. Please subscribe so you get notified when that happens. And until next time, bye!
There's a place